2 weeks after I paid off my first car, I got home and it was missing. I reported it stolen, then my aunt called, laughing, "Oh, don't freak. Kevin took it. He's starting over, he deserves a break." Kevin is actually my cousin. He once said I'd never be anything. I didn't answer, just brought a cop and my title to his driveway. I had just paid off my first car, my symbol of freedom. 2 weeks later, it was gone, and the sickest part? I knew exactly who took it. That day, the air hung heavy, a weird in-between warmth that felt almost ominous. I just finished a brutal shift, parked my dark blue Corolla, my absolute pride and joy, in its usual spot, and walked inside for a much-needed shower. 30 minutes later, stepping back out, it was just gone. No broken glass, no skid marks, just an empty patch of curb and a gut feeling that screamed, "This isn't random." My name's Ethan, I'm 26. To understand why this hit so hard, you need to know my family. Chaotic, that's the word. Not overtly bad, but boundaries? Those were suggestions. Personal property? A vague concept, especially if someone else needed it more. Help your family, they'd say, but it always meant me helping them. 2 years ago, I finally saved enough for my own place, a small, clean rental just outside Topeka. The kind of neighborhood where people are friendly, but still lock their doors tight after dark. I've worked 2 jobs since I was 21, warehouse during the day, restaurant shifts on weekends, just to scrape together every extra dollar to pay off that car. It wasn't a fancy ride, just a 2014 Corolla, but to me, it was everything. Freedom. Stability. Proof I could stand on my own, without them. And by them, I mean my extended family, specifically my Aunt Sarah and her son, Leo. Aunt Sarah, my mother's younger sister, had this wild mix of entitlement and pure delusion. She's still waiting for a reality TV crew to show up, declaring her the long-lost heir to some French chateau. Then there's Leo, her son. He peaked in middle school, you know the type. JV football hero who thought he was going pro. Got a lion tattoo after 1 semester of community college, then dropped out and blamed the system for everything. He's 28, still with his mom, constantly launching a new venture, or reflecting after getting fired. The last time we talked, at a family barbecue, he looked right at me and sneered, "Man, I can't believe you're working 2 jobs just for a Toyota. You really think that's something to brag about?" I laughed it off then, but that stung. I never forget. So, there I stood, heart hammering, staring at the empty space where my car should be. I called the police. They arrived quickly, asking the usual questions, enemies, grudges. I said no, but a cold certainty was forming. This wasn't random. No broken glass, no forced entry. Whoever took it had a key, or knew exactly where I kept the spare, that magnetic box under the wheel well. Only 2 people had ever seen me hide it, my mom, Elena, and Leo. Later that night, my phone buzzed. I was on the couch, nursing coffee, waiting for the police. The message, from an unknown number, was just a picture. My car. In a different driveway. And there was Leo, shirtless, grinning, throwing peace signs like he'd just won the lottery. Disbelief crashed into pure, white-hot fury. Before I could even react, my phone rang. Aunt Sarah. "Hey, sweetie," she chirped, completely unbothered. "Listen, don't panic, okay? Leo's just borrowing your car for a bit. He's going through a lot, you know, a fresh start. He deserves a break. I mean, you have your own place now, right? You can manage without it for a little while." I sat in stunned silence, phone glued to my ear, trying to process this absurdity. She spoke as if she was doing me a favor, as if I was the unreasonable one for not wanting my fully paid-off car stolen by a relative who hadn't held a job for more than a month. He what? I finally choked out, voice cracking, jaw tight. "Are you out of your mind? That's my car. I just reported it stolen." Sarah laughed. An actual laugh. "Oh, honey, don't be so dramatic. It's not stolen. It's family. Leo just needed it more than you right now. We'll bring it back when he's back on his feet. Promise. I didn't yell. Didn't scream. Didn't even hang up. I just stared at the wall, letting her drone on, my pulse thrumming in my ears. A quiet voice in my head, the one I'd learned to trust, whispered, "Prove it." I hung up, staring at the photo again. How long did Leo plan to borrow it? I didn't care. I had the title. The registration. And now, I had undeniable proof. What happened next? Let's just say Leo wasn't expecting a uniformed officer and a clipboard in his driveway the very next morning. But I'm getting ahead of myself. That night, sleep was impossible. I paced, replaying. Every family gathering, every backhanded compliment, every time they dismissed my boundaries as being too sensitive. I thought about the endless shifts, the exhaustion, the silent pride in that car, mine. Now, they were treating it like a community bike. But it was never just about the car, was it? It was about respect. The kind I'd always had to fight for, to claw out of them. Something broke in me that night. I wasn't asking nicely anymore. I was going to show them. First, though, I needed a solid plan and a name on that police report that would stick. And that meant facing someone I'd actively avoided for months, my mother, Elena. Because if anyone understood the depths of my family's entitlement, it was her. What Elena said when I showed her Leo's picture changed everything. I dreaded going back to that house, those memories, the old roles we all played. A script nobody ever rewrote. But I needed answers. Was this a one-off betrayal, or something deeper, more calculated? Leo didn't act alone. The smug photo, Sarah's condescending tone, it all felt too staged. The next morning, I drove David's car to Elena's place in Springfield, about 20 minutes away. The same modest two-story, faded yellow siding, wind chimes still tapping on the porch from when I was 12. Those chimes used to comfort me. Now, they felt like a cruel reminder of how little had changed. Elena opened the door before I knocked. "I saw the police report," she said flatly, arms crossed. "You really called the cops on Leo?" Not, "Are you okay?" Not, "What happened?" Just judgment, disappointment. As if I was the criminal. I walked in, uninvited, the weight of it all pressing down. "Yeah, I did," I said, "because my car was stolen, and I won't let it slide just because he's family." She sighed, turning away. "You always make everything so dramatic." Ethan, Leo's had a rough year. Lost his job. Girlfriend kicked him out. So that means he gets to steal my car? I shot back. He didn't steal it. He borrowed it. Sarah said she tried calling you. That was a lie. My call log was empty. Did she also tell you he sent me a picture, posing with it like a trophy? I pulled out my phone. That doesn't scream borrowed, Mom. That screams theft. She wouldn't even look at the image. She just sank onto the worn floral couch, staring at the floor. "You know how Leo is." "Yeah," I said, voice trembling, "that's the problem." I was shaking, not with rage, but with something far deeper, a bitter, gnawing hurt. The kind you feel when people you love look right through you, as if what matters to you is invisible. I'd lived it too many times. Every Christmas, Leo got the new game console, I got socks. Every cookout, he got the last burger. Every snide remark from him went unchecked. Every success of mine was met with silence, or worse, resentment. Always Leo. I remember at 15, I won a regional art competition. Months I'd poured into that charcoal sketch. First place. I brought home the ribbon, beaming. Elena barely looked up from her show. "That's nice," she'd said. The next weekend, Leo passed his permit test on the third try and got a party, cake, balloons, and $100. It wasn't just favoritism, it was a wound, and now it was outright theft. I stood in her living room, forcing my voice steady. "So, that's it? You're defending him after this?" She finally met my eyes. He just needs a win, Ethan. I blinked. And me? I finally pay off my car, finally get some stability, and the first thing that happens is he rips it away. And you're worried about his win? The silence that followed was deafening. I walked out without another word. That week blurred into a haze of quiet fury and disbelief. I worked my jobs like a robot, trying to keep from spiraling. The police were moving slowly. Standard procedure, they said, since it's a family matter and you know where the car is. But without further escalation, they couldn't just seize it. I needed more. So I became a detective. I printed Sarah's texts. I screenshotted Leo's grinning face. I even found footage from local traffic cams near my home in Topeka, showing my car leaving my street that night. The timestamps matched perfectly. Then, I found an Instagram story Leo had posted, rapping along to a song in my driver's seat, caption, "Fresh start, new whip, no stress." That hit hard. He was flaunting it, as if my hard work meant absolutely nothing. But the real breaking point came days later when Sarah called again. "Look, honey," she began, that syrupy tone always signaling a demand. "We've been thinking. Since Leo needs the car more, and since you're being so difficult, we'd like to make you an offer." I said nothing, just listened. "We'll give you $1,500 for it." I almost dropped my phone. 1,500? My car was worth triple that. "Well, it's used, and Leo's already driven it, so it's depreciated," she chirped. I hung up. No yelling, no cursing. Just a cold, decisive click. A chilling realization hit me, they never planned to return it. They planned to buy me out of my own property for a pittance, as if they were doing me a favor. I don't know how long I sat there after that call. An hour, maybe more. Staring at the wall until it blurred into white noise. Something fundamental cracked inside me that day. Not just anger, but a profound done. Done playing nice. Done waiting for respect. Done watching people like Leo glide through life while I bled for every inch. This was the breaking point. The next time I saw him, it wouldn't be a conversation. It would be proof. Authority. Repercussions. They clearly hadn't met this version of me yet. I went silent for 2 days. No calls from work, friends, or especially family. I needed stillness, an emotional reset. What do you even do when someone tries to lowball you for your own car like a yard sale item? The silence helped me function at work, stocking shelves, scanning inventory. But my mind was stuck on Leo's smug face in my car. You know that moment when the anger drains, leaving you hollow? That was me. Rock bottom isn't always dramatic. Sometimes, it's just cold cereal at midnight, dishes piled up, feeling invisible unless you're useful. For years, Leo's cruel words at that barbecue, "You'll never amount to anything," had lingered, a splinter under my skin. Even when I succeeded, part of me wondered if I was just pretending. The car was supposed to change that. It was my statement. Now, it was being paraded around by the very person who'd made me feel small for daring to believe I was worth something. But here's the thing about rock bottom, once you stop falling, you can finally push back. That emptiness, that feeling of having nothing left to lose, brought a strange, sharp clarity. So, I made a list. Not a to-do list, more like a prove them wrong list. Every petty insult, every dismissal, every time I was told to let it go, or stop overreacting, I wrote it down. Not for spite, but for purpose. To remind myself this anger was valid, earned. I could let it consume me, or I could use it. I started rebuilding, not with grand theatrics, but with quiet, deliberate moves. Step 1, Information. I called the DMV. Confirmed the title was still in my name. Good. Ordered a certified copy. Next, I officially reported the incident to my insurance, providing the police incident number. That began a paper trail. They advised against direct confrontation, and to keep documenting everything. No problem. I had screenshots, call logs, photos, the works. Then, the magistrate's office. Hours of waiting, some strange looks, but I left with forms for a property recovery order and a clear path forward. While I was at it, I called a lawyer. A coworker, who'd been through a tough divorce, recommended Daniel Rossi, small-time, but sharp, and affordable. I scheduled a consultation. All of this was silent, careful. No social media posts, no angry calls to Leo or Sarah. I let them believe I was just sulking, while I quietly built the foundation that would crumble beneath them. Outside of this plan, though, life kept moving. And that's when the real rebuilding began. I'd poured every ounce of energy into getting my car back, but somewhere in that obsession, I'd forgotten why I'd worked so hard in the first place. It wasn't just about the Toyota. It was about me. I didn't just want the car, I wanted to reclaim the version of myself who believed I deserved good things. So, I started showing up for myself. Stopped skipping breakfast, those few extra minutes made me feel human. Back to the gym, even just 20 minutes on the treadmill. Got a haircut. Started replying to friends' texts, not long messages, just enough to say, hey, I'm still here. One night, David, my coworker and the guy who'd lent me his car, invited me over. We ordered wings, played video games. Nothing deep, just pure, dumb fun. In the middle of it, he looked over and said, you know, I've never told you this, but I've always respected how hard you hustle. You actually try. That's rare, man. I was speechless. It hit harder than I expected, not because it was profound, but because it felt so incredibly genuine. I couldn't remember the last time someone said something like that to me without an agenda. After he left, I sat on my porch, staring at the stars. Maybe I'd let people like Leo define me for too long. Maybe I'd kept trying to prove myself to a family that would only clap if I failed. And maybe, just maybe, I didn't need their approval to matter. The next week was the real turning point. I met Daniel, the lawyer. Laid out everything, start to finish. All my meticulously printed documents, neatly labeled in a cheap folder. He listened, took notes, asked sharp questions. When I finished, he leaned back, a small smile playing on his lips. Ethan, he said, I've seen a lot of petty theft and family drama. This is a potent cocktail of both. Good news, you have a solid case. You own the car. You reported it. You've documented the unauthorized use. If we escalate this correctly, you're not just getting your car back. You might even have a civil suit for damages. My jaw dropped. Sue him? Yes, but let's focus on retrieval first. He explained a writ of replevin, a court order to retrieve stolen property. It would take a few weeks, but once approved, law enforcement could legally show up at Leo's place and tow the car. No more calls, no more begging. Just consequences. And I'd be there to see it. That idea ignited something in me. Not just wanting to see Leo squirm, okay, maybe a little, but because it was the first time I felt the system wasn't entirely stacked against me. That I wasn't crazy for being angry. That rules applied even to the Golden Boys. Daniel filed the paperwork, and we got a tentative hearing date. Until then, he told me, keep quiet, keep gathering proof, avoid all contact. So, I went back to work, back to the gym, back to me. And strangely, I started to feel okay. Even good. There's a profound power in having a plan, in waking up knowing you're not stuck, that you're moving forward. I started sketching again in the evenings. Just pencil on paper, little scenes from memory, my street, my old bedroom window. Art had always been my outlet, but I'd let it fade. Now, it was returning, a piece of myself I hadn't realized was missing. And here's the wild part, the less I focused on Leo, the more power I reclaimed for myself. I wasn't chasing, pleading, or explaining myself to people who had already decided. I was simply rebuilding. And for the first time in ages, I started to believe I wasn't the broken one. They were. They were the ones who thought a family meant control, that taking what wasn't theirs and calling it love and made it okay, that disrespect could be smoothed over with a laugh and a pathetic offer. Not anymore. The day Daniel called to confirm the court date, my cheeks hurt from smiling. A Friday, 2 weeks out. Enough time to prepare. Enough time for Leo to keep enjoying his new whip. He had no idea what was coming. What happened at that hearing? Let's just say it wasn't just the car that was put in reverse. Leo didn't know it yet, but the game was about to flip. And this time, I wasn't reacting. I was orchestrating. After Daniel's call confirming our court date, something new solidified in me. Not the slow, painful healing from before, but something sharper, purposeful. If the earlier weeks were about mending, this was about precision. I'd spent years being the family peacemaker, the quiet one who forgave before apologies were offered. But I was done with the role they'd written for me. It was time to rewrite the ending. First, I stopped calling it getting my car back. I called it what it was, taking back what's mine. There's a world of difference. Daniel and I prepped everything, documents, timestamps, a witness statement from my neighbor, even a printout of Leo's Instagram story in my car. Honestly, Daniel remarked, I'm surprised you haven't posted this online. It would go viral. I shrugged. That would feel like stooping. I don't want drama. I want results. He nodded, impressed. You're winning this one clean. But legal prep wasn't enough. I needed leverage. I needed witnesses. I wanted my family to see this unfold. So, I started making subtle moves. First, a text to Aunt Sarah. No anger, no demands, just a carefully worded message, hey, just a heads up. I've got a legal hearing scheduled about the car. They'll be contacting Leo soon. No hard feelings. Just letting the system handle it. No punctuation, no emojis, just unsettling, factual calm. Her reply came 4 minutes later, Ethan, you're seriously still doing this? He's going to give it back. You just need to calm down. This is such an overreaction. I didn't reply. 12 minutes after that, Leo texted for the first time in weeks, yo, what's this about court? Chill, dude. I said I was using it for a bit. We're family. I read it, let it sit, then locked my phone. I wanted them to feel the silence. The old me would have explained, smoothed things over. This new me wanted them off balance. I let the tension speak for itself. While they panicked, I planted more seeds. Next, I reached out to family members who always floated in the middle, the aunts and uncles who brought casseroles to holidays but avoided conflict. The cousins who weren't close, but not hostile. I called my Uncle Frank first. He wasn't close with Sarah, but he was respected. I laid out the facts, no emotion, no drama. He was quiet for a moment. Wow, I had no idea. That's seriously messed up. I'm not trying to start a war, I told him. I just want to draw a line. And I need people to see that line being drawn. He understood. Say less. I'll be there. Then I called my cousin Chloe. She was always neutral, but sharp, knew when things were wrong even if she didn't speak up. Same response, shock, support, confirmation she'd show. By week's end, 5 family members had agreed to come. Not as angry protesters, but as quiet observers, witnesses. People who'd never been asked to choose a side. Leo had always relied on their silence, their shrug of the shoulders indifference. Not anymore. Then, the final move, I went to see Elena. I didn't want to, but something in me needed closure, or maybe a final confrontation. She opened the door, blinking as if surprised to see me. Ethan, she started. I'm not here to argue, I cut in. I'm here to tell you this is happening. Court date's set. I have everything I need. You don't have to come, but when it's over, remember I gave you a chance to hear my side. She just stepped back, letting me in. The living room, same couch, same wind chimes, but the air felt different, like an old script had finally been burned. I know you love Leo, I said, standing in the middle of the room. And I'm not asking you to stop. But loving him doesn't mean enabling him. And loving me doesn't mean ignoring what's been taken from me. She slowly sat down. I didn't know it had gotten this far. That's because no one ever asks me how far it's gotten, I replied. They just assume I'll get over it. She looked up then, really looked. For the first time in a long time, I saw guilt, maybe even regret, in her eyes. I'm sorry, she said quietly. I didn't mean to minimize what you're going through. I didn't say it was okay, because it wasn't. But I nodded. That was enough. The days leading to court dragged on. Emails checked. Cold air breathed in like fuel. Leo, meanwhile, went radio silent, likely realizing this wasn't just another family squabble. I could almost hear his internal monologue, Ethan's overreacting. It's not like I stole it. He's just bitter. But it didn't matter. The day before court, I drove David's car slowly past Leo's house. My car was still there. Same den on the passenger door, same air freshener. Still mine. And soon, it would be mine again. But this time, Leo wouldn't just lose a car. He'd lose the illusion that there were no consequences for stepping on me. And a family? They were going to watch. I parked around the corner, killed the engine, and just stared. The silence in David's car felt heavy, but calm. Not sad, not angry. Just calm. For the first time in years, I wasn't the underdog. I was the reckoning. Tomorrow, the setup would pay off. Court was set for 10 a.m. on a Friday, but I was there by 9:15. Coffee in hand, folder under my arm, and the clearest head I'd had in months. The courthouse was stark, beige walls, squeaky linoleum, buzzing fluorescent lights. It smelled of paper, stale coffee, and nerves. I wore simple slacks and a button-down, projecting the quiet confidence of someone about to win. My witnesses arrived one by one. Uncle Frank, arms folded, an unshakable stare that could bench press the courtroom. Chloe, who gave me a silent hug, her support palpable. Even David, my coworker, swung by just to wait outside. This is gonna be good, he'd said, handing me a protein bar like I was running a marathon. At 9:58, Leo strolled in. Late, naturally. Zip-up hoodie, faded jeans, that same smirk he always wore when he thought he had the upper hand. Right behind him, Aunt Sarah, looking like she'd just left a yoga class, phone already in hand, probably texting about the injustice of it all. They barely acknowledged me. Leo flicked his eyes at me once, stretched, and leaned against the wall, treating this like a minor inconvenience. That wouldn't last. We were called into the small claims courtroom. Humble, plain wooden benches, a single flag. Judge Miller, a silver-haired woman in her 60s with piercing eyes and a no-nonsense presence, commanded immediate respect. She calmly asked for introductions. I stood. Ethan Carter, plaintiff. Leo stood. Leo Daniels, defendant. Sarah started to raise her hand. I'm his mother and are you the owner of the vehicle in question? Judge Miller asked, not even looking up. Sarah hesitated. Well, no, but then I'll ask you to remain silent unless called to testify. Boom. First win. I hadn't even spoken. The judge turned to me. Mr. Carter, please explain the situation. I opened my folder, pulled out the title, insurance, the printed police report, and began speaking in the calmest, clearest tone I could muster. I bought a used 2014 Toyota Corolla 3 years ago. Paid it off completely this month. On a specific evening, I parked it outside my home and went inside. 30 minutes later, the vehicle was gone. I reported it stolen. I handed her the documents, one by one. Each time, she nodded with quiet approval. I later received a photo from an unknown number. It was my cousin Leo, posing with the vehicle. Then a call from his mother, Sarah, stating he'd taken the car because he needed a fresh start and I shouldn't panic. I presented the photo and text screenshots. The next day, I notified my insurance and continued cooperating with the police. After consulting with legal counsel, I filed for a writ of replevin to legally reclaim my vehicle. The judge took the papers, flipping through them slowly. Then she turned to Leo. "Mr. Daniels, do you have a response?" Leo shifted, glancing at Sarah, who gave him a subtle coaching nod. "Well," Leo began, donning his fake humility, "I didn't steal it. I borrowed it. We're family. I was going to give it back. I just needed it for a bit." Judge Miller tilted her head. "Did you have permission to borrow the vehicle?" Leo hesitated. "Well, no, not exactly, but my mom told me Ethan wouldn't mind." Sarah started to rise again, but the judge cut her off with a raised hand. "Let me be clear," Judge Miller said, "did the registered owner, Mr. Carter, give you explicit permission to use this vehicle?" Leo's face tightened. "No." "Then this is unauthorized use of private property. In many cases, this would qualify as theft." Sarah finally erupted. "But he's family. You can't seriously treat this like a crime. He was just trying to survive." Judge Miller turned to her, calm and cutting. "Ma'am, familial relation does not override ownership rights. What your son did was not just irresponsible, it was unlawful. The law grants no immunity to relatives simply because they feel entitled." Leo's face flushed crimson. His smug confidence shattered. The judge continued, "Mr. Carter, do you still wish to pursue the writ of replevin and reclaim the vehicle?" "Yes, Your Honor." "Do you have any evidence the vehicle has been damaged, altered, or excessively driven since the date in question?" I pulled out the final set of documents, printouts of public Instagram stories, mileage estimates, neighbor statements confirming unusual driving patterns. The judge reviewed them, then delivered her ruling. This court grants the writ of replevin to Mr. Carter. Law enforcement is authorized to retrieve the vehicle immediately. Furthermore, any repairs or costs incurred due to unauthorized use may be pursued separately through a civil claim, should Mr. Carter choose to do so. Sarah gasped. Leo muttered something inaudible. But I stood there, calm and quiet. The gavel came down with a soft bang. Just like that, it was done. Later that afternoon, I stood at the edge of Leo's driveway, a local deputy beside me, as a tow truck backed up to my car. Leo stayed inside, a shadow behind the living room curtain, watching his flimsy empire collapse. Sarah stormed out, flailing, as if she could somehow undo the judgment. "You're ruining his life over a car," she shrieked. I didn't even look at her. I handed the deputy my ID, signed the release forms, and nodded to the driver. The car groaned onto the flatbed. As it rose, I finally turned to Sarah. "No," I said, my voice steady. "He ruined his life the moment he decided to take something that wasn't his. I'm just collecting what's mine." I got into David's car and followed the tow truck to the impound lot. They released my vehicle once the papers cleared. It wasn't perfect. Food wrappers in the back, a new scratch on the passenger door, that cheap tree air freshener. But it was mine. And sliding into the driver's seat, gripping the wheel, I smiled. Not just because I had the car back, but because I had me back. The fallout was slow, but oh, so satisfying. Word ripped through the family. For the first time, people started calling me instead of Leo. Some shocked, some impressed. A few even apologized for not realizing how bad it had gotten. Uncle Frank sent a bottle of bourbon with a note, about time someone stood up to him. Chloe invited me to dinner, saying, "You've got the whole family rethinking their priorities." Even Elena called 2 weeks later. "I didn't handle things right," she admitted, "but I'm proud of you for standing up for yourself." I believed her. But the best part? Leo didn't show at the next family event. Neither did Sarah. And no one asked where they were. Because for once, the silence wasn't mine to carry. It was theirs. A month later, a small check arrived, insurance covering the minor repairs. Tucked inside the envelope was a handwritten note from the adjuster. "In all my years, I've never seen someone handle family theft this cleanly. Kudos for doing it the right way." I taped that note inside my glove compartment, a constant reminder. Because for the first time in my life, I hadn't just survived the storm. I'd rewritten the forecast. They took from me, thinking I'd stay quiet. They forgot I'd learned how to roar in silence. And now, I drive with the windows down, music up, wind in my face. I don't check the rearview mirror for them. They're not behind me. They're not anywhere near me. And that's exactly where they belong. What would you have done?